Imagine a world where your entire life, from the moment you're born, is already written for you. Not a life of your own choosing, but a life of duty, service, and immense, crushing weight. This wasn't a fantasy novel. This was the real life of Queen Elizabeth II. She wasn't just a monarch. She was a living legend, a constant in a world that never stopped changing. But what truly made her legendary? Was it the crown, the palaces, the priceless jewels? No. The answer is far more profound, and it's a story of quiet strength, unwavering resolve, and a promise made by a young woman that she would keep for over 70 years. This is the story of how Elizabeth became more than a queen. She became an icon. Our story begins not with a throne, but with an unexpected twist of fate. When Elizabeth Alexandra Mary Windsor was born in 1926, no one thought she would be queen. She was the daughter of the king's second son. She had a relatively normal, privileged childhood, away from the direct line of succession. She was a girl who loved horses and dogs, with a serious but gentle nature. But history had other plans. In 1936, her uncle, King Edward VIII, did the unthinkable. He abdicated the throne for love, choosing to marry a divorcee, which was forbidden for a monarch at the time. Suddenly, Elizabeth's quiet life was shattered. Her father, a shy and stuttering man, became King George VI, and at just 10 years old, Elizabeth became the heir to the British Empire. Her destiny was sealed. From that moment on, her life was one of preparation. During World War II, while bombs fell on London, she and her sister Margaret could have been sent to safety in Canada. But their mother famously said, "The children won't go without me. I won't leave without the king, and the king will never leave," so they stayed. Elizabeth, still a teenager, even joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service, training as a truck driver and a mechanic. She got her hands dirty, learning to change tires and fix engines. It was an early sign of her character. She was uncontent to simply watch from the palace window. She wanted to serve, to be part of her people's struggle. The true turning point, the moment that defined her entire life, came on her 21st birthday. While on a tour in South Africa, she made a broadcast to the Commonwealth, and her words would echo through the decades. She said, "I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service and the service of our great imperial family." Think about that. At 21, most of us are figuring out what to do next week. She pledged her entire existence. It was a promise she would never break. Just 5 years later, in 1952, that promise was put to the ultimate test. She was in Kenya on a royal tour with her husband, Philip. She was staying in a treetop hotel, watching the animals at a watering hole. It was there, in the heart of Africa, that she learned her beloved father had passed away in his sleep. In that instant, she ceased to be Princess Elizabeth. She descended from that treetop lodge as Queen Elizabeth II. She was only 25 years old. She flew back to Britain not as a grieving daughter, but as a sovereign. The weight of the world, or at least the Commonwealth, was now on her young shoulders. Her coronation in 1953 was a global spectacle. It was one of the first major international events to be broadcast on television. Millions huddled around tiny black and white screens, watching this young woman in a magnificent gown, taking the sacred oath. The ceremony was ancient, steeped in 1,000 years of tradition, but its broadcast was revolutionary. It brought the monarchy into the living rooms of ordinary people, making Elizabeth a familiar face around the globe. She was a symbol of hope and renewal for a nation still recovering from the scars of war. What followed was the longest reign in British history. Over 70 years. To put that into perspective, she saw 15 British prime ministers come and go, from Winston Churchill, who was born in 1874, to Liz Truss, born in 20th century. She met 13 out of the last 14 U.S. presidents. The world transformed around her. When she ascended the throne, the British Empire still sprawled across the map. She presided over its peaceful dismantling, transforming it into the Commonwealth of Nations, a voluntary association of 56 independent countries. She was a bridge from the old world of empire to the modern era of global partnership. She navigated the Cold War, the rise of the internet, social upheavals, and political crises. Through it all, she was the constant. Governments rose and fell, trends came and went, but the Queen remained. She was the nation's anchor in a stormy sea of change. Her role was a delicate balancing act. As a constitutional monarch, she had no real political power. She couldn't make laws or command armies. Her power was symbolic, what was known as soft power. It was the power of influence, of continuity, of being a figurehead that everyone, regardless of their politics, could look to. Every week, she held a private audience with her prime minister. These meetings were completely confidential. No one knows what was said. But here, she could advise, she could warn, and she could encourage. She brought a perspective no one else had a living memory of decades of history. Prime ministers often spoke of how valuable her quiet wisdom and vast experience were. She wasn't just a figurehead. She was the nation's most trusted confidant. But her legendary status wasn't just built on duty and diplomacy. It was also built on her incredible stoicism and personal sacrifice. Think of the scandals that rocked her family over the years. The divorces, the controversies, the relentless media scrutiny. Through it all, she maintained a public face of calm and dignity. Her personal motto was said to be, "Never complain, never explain." In a world obsessed with sharing every emotion, her reserve was almost superhuman. She weathered every storm, putting the stability of the institution she represented above her own personal feelings. This dedication earned her immense respect, even from those who were not fans of the monarchy. Her image became iconic. The brightly colored outfits, always chosen so she could be easily spotted in a crowd. The matching hats, the classic handbag, the little wave. These weren't just fashion choices. They were part of a uniform, a carefully crafted persona designed for public service. She traveled the world more extensively than any monarch in history, visiting over 100 countries. She was a global celebrity before the term really existed. For millions of people, she was the only monarch they had ever known. She was simply the queen, no other name was needed. And while she was a global icon, there were glimpses of the woman behind the crown. Her deep love for her corgis, who followed her everywhere in the palace. Her passion for horse racing, where you could see genuine, unbridled joy on her face. Her dry sense of humor, often deployed in private, but occasionally making a public appearance, like her memorable cameo with James Bond for the 2012 London Olympics. These moments made her human, relatable. They showed that beneath the weight of the crown was a woman with her own passions and a wonderful, witty spirit. Her later years were marked by a series of jubilees: silver, gold, diamond, and finally, the historic Platinum Jubilee in 2022, celebrating 70 years on the throne. These events were massive outpourings of public affection. People didn't just celebrate the monarchy. They celebrated her. They celebrated her lifetime of service, her unwavering commitment. She had become a grandmother to the nation, a symbol of stability and endurance. When she passed away in September 2022 at the age of 96, the world seemed to stop. The outpouring of grief was immense and global. It was a testament to the impact she had made. She wasn't just Britain's queen. She was the world's queen. She had become a part of the global consciousness. So why is Queen Elizabeth II a legend? It's not because she was born into royalty. It's because of what she did with that inheritance. She took a role that could have faded into irrelevance and made it a powerful force for stability and unity. She dedicated her entire life, from youth to old age, to a single, selfless promise. She was a constant thread in the chaotic fabric of modern history, a living symbol of duty, resilience, and quiet dignity. In an age of fleeting fame and loud opinions, she showed the world the profound power of quiet service and a life well lived. She was a queen from a fairy tale, but her legend is very, very real. She wasn't born a legend. She became one. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by the lives of incredible figures from history, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into the story of a legend. See you next time.